People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees. They don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Hello again, and welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. My name is Randy Cook, and each week, Charisse and I sit down here and talk through some of the things that you might be wondering about, concerned about, worried about, scared of when it comes to going into retirement. There's a lot to think about, and it's kind of a time of a lot of worry for a lot of people. So we try to help you out there. And if you don't have somebody that you're talking to right now about your retirement, about your finances, let me recommend Charisse here, and we'll talk more about that as we move through. Charisse, how are you doing today, you world traveler? You look at you.
Well, I'm doing great. Nothing but big smiles.
Yeah, you were at the Waste Management. I was following you on Facebook there. And so that, if for people who don't know it, it's the wildest golf tournament that there is on the PGA Tour. Happens every year in Scottsdale, and Charisse goes every year. It's a big old party and a golf tournament breaks out is basically what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I go almost every year. I've been invited 3 times, and I will have to say it's almost every other year so far. Okay. And I played really well. And we took a bunch of my drives. You know, I'm playing with some big players out there, and we still took my drives. So that was exciting. And it's actually surreal. I'm still processing the fact that I get to do something like that. That's like the dream for so many people. I'm so blessed.
Well, I'm a golf geek, and this is my thing. And so here Charisse is on Facebook. And over the last couple of years, you played with Gary Woodland, who won the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. You played last year with Victor Hovland, and this year with Xander Schauffele and Cameron Young. And these are guys who are literally, folks, in the top 10, top 15, top, of all golfers. And Charisse is out there banging away with them.
I know. I could have been partnered with anybody. And there was a draw party the night before, but I didn't have to draw. We got to choose. So Everybody else got to draw. So those were the picks. So it was fun. And I did hit hole 16. It was my best shot. I did not get booed.
In front of 20,000 people, yes.
In front of 20,000 people. And believe it or not, I wasn't nervous. And I'm just really good at shutting out noise or anything that seems chaotic and closing my eyes and just going for it. So I think that's why I hit the green.
Well, it's pretty cool.
I've been practicing my shot too.
Pretty cool.
Very lucky lady. So blessed.
Yep.
But you can check out the video on Facebook or Instagram. I think it's even on LinkedIn. Anybody wants to see the craziness.
Yeah, you can look it up under Retirement Coffee Talk there. You can also go to our website, and there's links there for all the social media. You can click in there, and Charisse is very active on social media, so you'll see a lot there. But pretty fun to follow some of that. But let's get into it today. One of the things that I do when we're going to sit down and do a show is obviously go out there and look for some stories to talk about. And you go to a place like Yahoo Finance, and every single day, and I am not exaggerating, people write in and they want to know if they can retire. And the stories go like this. I challenge you to go there today. You'll see one. It'll say, I've saved this much. We're going to get this much in Social Security. Can I retire? And they're asking the market advisor that. And so the numbers, Charisse, could go from I've saved $300,000, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million. Can I retire? It doesn't make any difference how much money people have saved. It could be a whole lot. It could be really good. It could be very little. And they all want to know the same thing. What is it? You have to work through this insecurity that people have. And because they may have done really, really well saving, but they still can't get themselves over the hump.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I did my own income plan on myself. And it was kind of nerve-wracking because I was like, okay, if I have this, because I wanted to kind of put myself in my client's position, and if I have this amount of money and I want this income every year to pay all my bills and then also do travel, what I uncovered is like, oh, I need more money. So figuring out that math, it was like, wow, okay, I have to work longer, which I intend to work forever because I'm just a workaholic and I love what I do. But it was nice to try that and see what it feels like. Because that's what we do with our clients and people who come in for the first time. The insecurity is we save this money. We're really not sure how to spend it. We're not sure if we should take more or take less. And I will say 50% of the time, people actually spend less because of that fear and that insecurity. And they don't have that person, Randy, that's there, doing the math for them, showing them the confidence that they can have in spending their money, especially during their go-go years. And it's basic math. I wrote a book. It's done. It's just not published. It's Can You Retire Now? And it tells you how to do this. It says, take down the inventory. What are your fixed incomes? Do we have one Social Security check? Do we have two Social Security checks? Do we have a pension? Do we have cash rents coming in? So we look at all those moving pieces. And then we look at the liabilities. Do we have a mortgage? Do we have a car payment? Do we have credit cards? And then you add them all up and then you subtract them. And whatever that deficit is, that's the amount of money you have to pull out of your 401k. And so some people might only need $10,000 a year, Randy. Some people might need 20. I've seen people need $100,000 a year in income to cover that deficit because not everybody has a pension. Not everybody has a household with two that have two Social Security checks. And some people just like to live at a certain standard that they've done their entire life, but they don't know how to do it, especially if you have $1 million saved. So when we build in this inventory plan and we start focusing on your spending plan, it really helps people just really understand, can they or can they not retire? And I just want to let the listener know that because you only have $300,000 saved or maybe $500,000 saved or $2 million saved, it doesn't mean you can't retire. We just need to do the math to figure out when can you retire by helping you with our inventory plan and putting the math together for you. And then you can say, oh, well, shoot, I can retire now. We retire more people early than we ever did in our history in business. Over the last 20 years, the last, I would say 8 years, we have put a big push to get people retired early. We show them how to have inflation protection, Randy, in their plan. We show them how to not run out of money because we don't want to overspend. But we also show them how to, in their go-go years, how to spend more and then pull back the reins later so they can really enjoy their wealth and their health at the same time, because we don't know when, the big guy upstairs says it's time to go.
Yep. Nervousness about retirement is real. And sometimes even the math is sitting staring you right in the face. You're still nervous about things. This past week, my wife is going to retire at the end of April. Okay. And she hasn't told hardly anybody. She went on a business trip this week. It was going to be her last one. Now, they didn't know it. She knew it. And they had to, for an icebreaker, they had to play 2 truths and a lie. So she throws in there, and I'm retiring in April. They go, oh, that's a lie. That's a lie. And then they found out it's true. And then all the shocked faces, And but even there, we've been working on this for quite a while. The money's there. And now with all the emotion that goes along with it, oh my gosh, you're retiring. Then you start to feel weepy and you start to feel like I'm leaving all my friends at work. And then you start to wonder, did I do enough? Have I saved enough? And then you start to question everything that you've done. Oh, yeah. And sometimes what you're talking about, Charisse, having that math right in front of you really does help, doesn't it?
It does. When we started doing math the right way in retirement planning and financial planning, that's when we saw the aha buttons start clicking left and right. People sit back in their chair and they do this and they just rock in their chair and they're just like, now that's a plan. I've never seen something like that, Charisse. I can retire like this. And I remember the first gentleman and his wife who did that. He just sat there like in shock that I could just make it so simple for them to see that. He said he'd seen 100 advisors. He's like, he's never seen something like this. And that's when I knew we were onto something based on how we build plans.
Well, we would love to have the opportunity to talk to you about it, do the math for you about your retirement. Maybe you have a moment just like what Charisse is discussing there, where you go, wow, I didn't think this could happen. And it's right there in front of me. I can retire. Let's do that kind of math for you. 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680. What happens when you call? Well, we're going to get a little information from you, get a date on a calendar, and then sit down and really start to hash things out. What have you done to save for retirement? What do you want to do in retirement? Let's put the money with the dreams. 833-368-3680, or you can use the website, which is zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. There's a box there. It's a gold box. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's a free meeting and no cost, no obligation. Let's sit down and talk about your retirement. All right. One of the things about this show, and we encourage people to do, is, sit down with Cherise, a financial advisor. Yet only about 25% of people in this country use a financial advisor. So there was some studies done, this one from Northwestern Mutual, an insurance company. This was done about 2 years ago, and they said if you use a financial advisor, you could potentially double your retirement savings. That seems like an outrageous thing. But Cherise, do you believe that double? Or what do you think of a statement like that?
I think you can double, you can triple, and you can quadruple depending on your age, right? And how you actually put the plan together. So to quadruple your money, there needs to be some tax planning involved. So I do believe, not because I'm biased to it, but I do believe doubling your money is zero problem at all, right?
Okay. But you need time to do it. You need time to do that.
Exactly. You need time to do that. And you definitely don't need a market crash along the way if you're going to double your money in 10 years, right? But conservatively, you could do that in 15 years. So what I want you to understand about financial planners is there's so many different types. There's the fiduciary, there's the non-fiduciary, there's the stock jock, there's the insurance agent that calls themselves financial advisors, yet they're not financial advisors. There's CFPs. And they do things a little bit differently too. So everybody has their worth in the financial field. You have to go out and put your feelers out there to see who works best for you. But I will tell you, an office, you want to find a registered investment advisory firm, in my opinion, because there's no red tape. Nobody's holding them back from offering you whatever the sky's the limits might be, right? The world is your oyster when you're working with advisors like that. And if you don't know what the word fiduciary means, it's looking out for your best interests before yourself. This is a pretty stringent, rule-based philosophy in our industry, and not every financial advisor has to follow these rules, Randy. And so this is why we decided to take that path years ago, because we say, well, we follow this philosophy anyways. Why wouldn't we just stamp that on our license? Because it's a huge value. An advisory firm that offers more than just a 60-40 portfolio on top of that is key, especially in retirement. Now, if you're, in growth mode and you're just buying stocks and you're just buying the highest S&P, NASDAQ, Bitcoin fund, and you're going to set it and forget it, now you're working with, in my opinion, a stock jock, because they're just like, put your money in, I'll make my fee, your money will keep growing. There's no plan, no tax plan, no exit strategy, but you're younger and your money's growing. So I would say that's the 30s to the 50s, right? 30 years old to 50 years old. But when you get 50, there comes this transition where now your wheels are spinning and you're saying, hey, I need to save more. Can I retire in 10 years at 60 if I want to? That's when you bring a retirement planner into your life, because they're the same person as that stock jock, that growth person, but they're going to start wiggling in some tax planning so you can potentially pay less taxes by the time you retire, and so you can maneuver your money and leverage it a little differently. They're also going to build in an income strategy. They're going to have a growth strategy. There's going to be protection strategies. So not all fiduciaries are created equal either, Randy. So we also have to understand that our firm, our Zinnia Wealth Management team, not too many teams out there and advisories out there do what we do. We decided to do it because over time we learned that our clients needed all these little steps to have and give the confidence they need to retire either earlier and then spend more money earlier versus later, but still help them understand that based on our plan, as long as you stick to the plan, we're not going to run out of money, right? Don't overspend. Let's spend right when it's the right time. And let's be really careful when markets crash and not have all of our money in the stock market. So yes, your money can double, triple, and quadruple depending on the fiduciary advisory firm you're working with. So that is key. Not every advisor is created equal, and not all advisors are going to be able to do that.
You're also talking about the difference between an independent advisor and an advisor like, there's nothing wrong with you drive down the road and you see a strip mall and there's an Edward Jones person and there's, all these different places there, and that's fine. But those folks are going to recommend the offerings that are within their corral, so to speak. You have the opportunity to go out there and go to everything that is out there and give people more choices probably than the guy at the strip mall.
Such a great point. Like, I'm very, very proud over the last 20 years, the decisions we have made with the products and the investments and the portfolios that we offer, because there's so many directions we could have taken. So I'm always seeking out the best of the best. I'm not kidding, Randy, the best of the best. We're not finding stuff because we have a handshake and somebody took us on a cruise. We're not cherry picking products because somebody says, hey, this is next best thing. We do the math. We back test. We look at what are the variables? What has it been through and what are we going to see in the future, especially if the economy gets a little rocky or if it grows really fast. So we're looking at all those elements when we're pulling in those index strategies or those notes or exchange traded funds or certain stocks or dividend stocks. And we're also looking at your age and your risk tolerance, of course. And what do you want? I think that's a big key. Most advisors don't ask, hey, what do you want? And then we share our information from there.
One of the things we do on this show is why we have this show is to introduce you to Charisse and how she helps people retire and just to see if that kind of feels right to you and give Charisse a call and let's see what she has right there and if it does feel right to you. And, there's times when Charisse will say, you know what, I'll look at somebody's portfolio and say they're doing a great job. Congratulations, shake your hand and you're on your way. There are other times when she sits and looks at things and there might be some holes here. There might be some things that you could do better. So let's get that evaluation. Do that for you at no charge. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680 or online, zinniawealth.com. All right, so we talk about, you mentioned it already, the 60-40 portfolio. That's been kind of the generic kind of thing for years. It is 60% stocks, 40% bonds. Stocks go up, bonds don't. Stocks go down, bonds kind of help you out. That's always been kind of the thing. Well, the people at BlackRock say that stocks for growth, bonds for protection isn't working so much anymore. They say bonds do not offer the portfolio ballast that they once did. Bonds are not the shock absorber that they once were. Bonds are falling out of favor. Charisse, do you find that? Are you still using bonds in any way, shape, or form? Or do you see that this is a time now where bonds aren't necessarily in vogue? We're not using them as much anymore.
Well, it's always like BlackRock to show up a day late and have that conversation. We've been talking about this for 2 years.
Right.
Gosh, welcome to the party. So the 60-40 portfolio is not your grandparents' portfolio. It's not your parents' portfolio. It's changed. It's likely not to make the return we're used to seeing over the last 10 or so years or 20 years. When interest rates shift gears, it's a problem. Mm-hmm. It's a serious problem when you got this teeter-totter, on the playground, this teeter-totter, and when interest rates are here and they come down, which is happening right now, interest rates have come down, right? Bond values go up. Mm-hmm. Now, as interest rates go up, the bond values go down. Right. And so right now we're just in this finicky place. Well, interest rates didn't change recently, even though they're still down, but we're not reaping the return from them. So short-term bonds are just not faring very well. And a lot of people have the short-term bonds because they were told 2 years ago, get short-term bonds because of the yield curves will make more money, which was true. But things are changing. And now those people have not transitioned. Even managers like exchange traded funds and mutual funds, they haven't made the changes. And so they should have moved to the long-term bonds. So you're not seeing the reward like you should. So there has to be, in my opinion today, active management in your bond strategy. So for us, we do active management in our bond strategies. BlackRock doesn't do that so much. And when they do, it takes them 2 years to make a decision. So seriously, and there's a lot of managers out like that. I'm not busting your chops. It just is what it is. You pay for what you get for, and sometimes it's a whole lot of nothing. And so bonds have to be transitioned and changed over time as we're getting returns or not getting returns. So we've really just held away bonds, and we have some bonds in our portfolios, but we're actively managing them. If it's time to go short term, we're buying the short terms. If it's time to go long term bonds, like 15, 20-year, 30-year corporate type of bonds, hey, we're going to shift gears. We're going to do that automatically in our portfolio so clients don't have to worry about it or wait for a call or something like that if you have our active managed strategy. But we are using other replacements that we feel are going to have a higher rate of return than bonds, which we've already seen take place over the last 3 years, right? Gotcha. I'm not allowed to talk about returns over the radio, but when our bond portfolio makes 5 and then our replacement bond portfolio makes 8 to 10, that's proof in the pudding, right? So we are using fixed and safe indexing strategies and just fixed rate strategies to overcome this bond world, because it's going to get a little sticky for a while. And as soon as interest rates go up, then, we got to shift gears again. So bonds are just not going to be that landing that we are used to. And remember, in 2007, 8, and 9, Randy, bonds still lost 23, 24, 26%. So the point of a bond is so that we protect from losses. But if you had your money in the S&P, you would have lost 50%. So yeah, protected you halfway from losses. So our transitioning from bonds went to the indexing and fixed strategies out there so that when markets do crash, we're not losing 23, 24, 25% like you potentially will in the bonds. You just get a zero that year. There's no better strategy, in my opinion, especially right now in the day that we live in.
Well, we are in kind of a weird interest rate environment right now. The president is pressuring the Fed to lower interest rates. They're standing firm. And then there probably will be a new Fed chair coming in this spring, this Kevin Walsh. And everything that I know about him is he is really tough on inflation. And in order to be tough on inflation, we got to have lower interest rates. So we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year. But the one thing that's kind of interesting about the interest rate environment is the 10-year, which people look at. You'll see 10-year, 5-year, 2-year. And the 10-year is one that kind of influences things like annuities. That seems to be hanging in there. Even though rates are down, the 10-year is pretty good. So that's kind of a weird situation, isn't it?
I know. It's, financial planning isn't as easy as it used to be. This is why a financial advisor is more important than ever, because it doesn't make sense based on curves when it comes to the bond world and yield curves. And the 10-year note should have changed, and it's really not bobbling. So that one I cannot figure out.
It's like we get good news in the stock market and it goes down. We get bad news and it goes up. I mean, everything is like opposites these days. I don't know.
I know. It all started during COVID. Nothing ever really went back to the normal finance world. And you just bob and weave, and there's a lot of changes happening. I mean, that's even why we've added a new sector rotation portfolio to our portfolios. We got the dividend portfolio, we have the growth, we have the day trading portfolio, and now we have this sector rotation portfolio because we feel we need to sprinkle in more opportunity to catch these waves in our different portfolios. And sectors are one of my favorite strategies. And we let it go, 2 years ago, but we're bringing it back. So that's exciting.
We would love to have the opportunity to talk to you about your retirement, your thoughts, your concerns, what's going on. And you hear this stuff about interest rates. And, I remember my mom always bought municipal bonds. And then she looked at me and she goes, I can't get nothing from my money these days. I've ever heard being frustrated about that. And you might be frustrated too. Give Sharice a call. 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680, or online. It's zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. And on the website there, you're going to see a gold box that says complimentary retirement consultation. You click on that, then some things are going to open up so you can put some information in there. Our team will reach out to you. We'll get a date on a calendar and start talking and planning through your retirement. Okay, so one of the rules about retirement that has been around for an awfully long time is the 4% rule. And Sharice can give you the history of that. But the idea is if you pull 4% of your money, you have, we always say, you have $1 million. You pull 4%. That's $40,000 a year, right? Okay, so if the market is growing and you're taking 4%, you're doing okay. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that rule has been challenged a lot of times and altered a lot of times. This is Christine Benz, and she's from Morningstar, and she says we're gonna make a small addition to that this year.
We came out with 3.9% as a safe starting withdrawal for people who have an approximately 30-year time horizon. But my hope is that people don't just take that 3.9 or 4% and run with it, because in many scenarios that will lead to significant underspending and really depriving themselves of a better quality of life that they could otherwise have.
All right. Yes, that's very, very important what she said there. But let's talk about this. What is the history of the 4% rule? Did it work at one time? Will it work today? I mean, she's just pulling it down to 3.9 now. And since the market's up, why are we pulling it down? I don't get this thing.
Okay. How do you go from 4% to 3.9%? I'm going to be nice, but that doesn't really wiggle the budget. I can do the math in my head right now, and it doesn't make a big difference. So don't listen to all things that you hear, but let's just talk about the history of the 4% rule, because if you go online, it'll be 3.5, it'll even be 3%. You're going to hear it from all different people. They're all going to have their different says, Morningstar, doesn't matter, Christine, Benz, whoever. But the 4% rule was created in the 90s when the stock market from 1980s to 2000, it grew like 1,000%. It went straight up the Dow Jones. This was an anomaly time period because that's never happened before and it probably won't ever happen again. So they came up with the 4% rule saying, hey, if you don't spend more than 4%, you will never run out of money. So if you had $1 million and you pulled 4%, that's $40,000. But then what happened come the year of 2000? There was a 33-month decline in the stock market, and the market just dove. And so somebody's 401k instantly was a 201k if you followed that 4% rule, because you had to pull 4% out probably to cover your budget if you were retired. And then it took 5 years to recover. And then 2007, 8, the same thing happened, 18-month decline, and then it took 4 years to recover. So here's the deal. There's this lost decade that you need to pay attention to from 2000 to 2010. If you followed this 4% rule, you would be in big trouble because the average over that 10 years was actually 1.8%. It wasn't 1.8, 1.8, 1.8, 1.8, 1.8 every year. It was with the ebbs and flows of the stock market. And if you're pulling money out when the market went down, you were nearly out of money. And this is why the number one fear in retirement, Randy, is running out of money, because this has happened to so many people where I remember it like it happened yesterday. And this was a long time ago. Some people came into me that had about $2.6 million. When they came in and saw me, it was 2009, maybe 2010. It had to be 2010. They had about 1.2 million left over. The problem is they were living off too much of the money. So as the market was going down, they were pulling out their money. And as the market was going up, they were pulling out their money. So that's a big no-no. You have to have money that did not take a loss to live on during time periods like that. This is why having a financial advisor in retirement makes impeccable sense to help you understand this. And it was really sad because those people, they had to cut back their budget. They had a farm, everything went wrong. And to say, hey, we're retired and we have to cut your budget back so that this remaining 1.2 million doesn't run out. But here was the deal. They didn't listen. And a few years later, I would say 4 years later, they had like 850,000 left over. They were spending their money way too fast, getting things fixed. They weren't thinking. So listen, there's the 3.9% rule. There was a 4% rule. This couple was actually pulling 6% out. For some reason, their advisor said it was okay to do that. And whatever the rule is, I call it the Charisse rule. Oh, let's not call it the Charisse rule, Randy. It's called the Zinnia rule. Every household that comes in here, it is not cookie cutter. You are all going to have your own rule based on the inventory that you tell us you have from your fixed income, your Social Security, your pensions, if you have rentals, whatever you have coming in, and then whatever debt you have, if you have any. And then you're going to have your own special Zinnia rule because not everybody follows 4%. Not everybody's going to follow 3%. Not everybody's going to follow 6%. And it's really going to be dependent on our plan. So anybody who says it's cookie cutter that is not creating you an income plan, that's the wrong office for you, because it is absolutely imperative that you don't work with an advisory firm that makes things cookie cutter and everybody in the office is doing the same thing, because you have a different scenario from your neighbor Bubba to the person across the street or down the road from you. So we got to really match the math with your personality, your four walls and your roof in your own home, and what your needs are and your wants.
Well, one of the things I hear you saying there, Charisse, is it's okay to, maybe use some of these rules as a starting point. But the big differentiator here is instead of pulling a percentage of your wealth, there should be some of your wealth that makes more wealth. And that should be with the bucket that you're pulling from. And then that creates a whole different scenario here is I need a financial advisor to grow my money, at the same time preserve my money, but I also need income from my money. So there's the three things that your job is. It's preserving, growth, and income. And you've got to do all three of those things in order to make a retirement work.
Yeah, it's taken us years to get that down right, but we do it every day, and our advisors, they're really good at it. And we just want to make sure like you're getting what you want covered and your needs covered in retirement, and then that we're not running out of money at the end of the day. That's the number one fear. Let's get that fear to go away and work on the plan the best to the ability that we can.
You spent your whole life getting a check from your employer. Now you're going to spend your retirement getting a check from where? One is going to be Social Security. Maybe there's a pension, but the other one's coming from you. How does that work? Let's figure it out together. Give Charisse a call. We'll do that. Complimentary retirement consultation. That's a free meeting with no cost, no obligation to sit down and look at your retirement. What's going on here? What do you need every month? And what's coming in every month? And what do you want to do in retirement? Let's get it all down on paper. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680 or online, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. All right, so Charisse has said it many times. You got to know what the light bill is, the grocery bill is, the gas bill is, the cable bill is, and by God, we got to have Netflix. Got to have all that stuff in retirement. When you ask people, though, this is an interesting study. Ask people, once they've got the basics, what's the one thing that really worries you as far as bills are in retirement? And it didn't come up, housing and food. 81% of people in this survey said they are worried about health care. They're worried about premiums. They're worried about prescriptions. They're worried about long-term care. They're worried about their health. So when you first retire, Charisse, you get Medicare. You sign up for Medicare. Maybe you work a couple more years, and then you click into Medicare at 67 or 68 or whatever it is. And then they look back and they see how much money you made the last 2 years.
Yes.
And that's where your premium is decided. Well, if you have a couple of really good years right before you retire, your Medicare premium could be top of the card, couldn't it? Do you find that that's kind of common in the first year or two when people retire?
Yeah, sometimes we don't see people till after they have retired, and they're right in the middle of this moment where they're so frustrated because their income was so high at work, and then they retire at 65, and their neighbor who had a $185 a month Medicare Part B premium, theirs is like $550. So we call this IRMA, ugly IRMA rules, and the IRMA rules have a 2-year look back. So at 63, whatever your income is, if it's over a certain amount, your Medicare Part B premium at age 65 could be much, much higher, which we see very, very often. And if you Google IRMA rules, it'll just tell you, and go right to chat. It'll tell you all the rules about it. And you come in and see us, we'll share all the information with you. But you also have to be careful because a lot of people will retire at 65 and then say, okay, now that my income is a little bit lower than it was when I was working, let's roll an IRA over to a Roth. And we still have to worry about those IRMA rules. So what we like to do is do the math and figure out what is that happy number to roll from IRAs over to a Roth to keep you at this happy IRMA penalty, right? And then we show you the math. Is it worth it or is it not worth it? And 9 out of 10 times it's always worth it, depending on what your goals are. If you want tax-free income in the future or tax-free legacy to beneficiaries later. So healthcare, Randy, I will tell you, out of all the worries in the entire world when people are getting ready to retire or in retirement, is health care. They are so afraid that healthcare is going to take all their assets and they're not going to have enough money for the surviving spouse. It is a huge worry. And so many people worry about long-term care, Randy, that they still do nothing about it. They won't go buy long-term care insurance. They won't go buy life insurance with a long-term care rider. They just close their eyes, stick their head in the sand, and next thing you know, they're still worrying about it. They're laying awake at night wondering what's going to happen. Not every night, but it's a concern. When you guys are in retirement, the only thing you should be worrying about is if your cruise canceled because there's a hurricane, right? Or the weather's really bad, you can't get on a plane. When you're worrying about long-term care, that just means you're not working with the right advisory firm that understands how to help you cover those costs. You don't have to go out and buy life insurance. You don't have to go out and buy a long-term care old school John Hancock or Genworth policy. There are things you can implement with your own money without paying a premium every month that can help with those costs. And so this is one of our other fortes. There's 5 pieces to this pie that we work on. And one of them's income planning, one of them's tax planning, one's investment, one of them's estate planning, but the other one's healthcare. That's 1/5 of your plan. You need to have this entire pie covered so that you can retire and just do what you want to do, knowing that things are covered. But if we don't dial in and show you this pie and these things that need to be covered, yeah, you're going to be insecure about retirement. You're either not going to retire, you're not going to spend enough money, or you're going to lay awake once in a while when markets are crashing, or when, health is upon you, or as soon as somebody passes away in your life, you're all of a sudden scrambling, trying to find some insurance agents, buy any life insurance, right? Like, don't do that. Don't scramble. Let's just figure out, do you need it, do you not? So that when those things do arrive in your life, or you see a scenario take place because it happens to your neighbor or a family member, that you don't have to worry about it. You can actually coach their family on what to do next. There's nothing more important in my world that our clients have peace of mind, Randy. And I think enough people just do not. And I think it's just having that full written plan and understanding, what do we need to do to get there, to take that insecurity away and give you confidence? And can we do it, right? Have we saved enough to make all that happen? So, and that's what we bring to the table.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Sharice Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, it's zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. Or give Sharice a call. Let's talk about your retirement. Have that meeting. You've been putting it off, and now all of a sudden you're thinking about taxes because it's a new year and you're getting all that stuff together. Why not think about your retirement too? Let's take it one step further and start planning there as well. 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. Now, this story, we got talking about long-term care there for a second, so I'm just going to move right into this story here, and that is this. I was reading in Market Watch, and a guy wrote, and here the headline said, "This was the $30,000 thing that made my retirement." And I'm like, okay. So I go in there and I read that, and what the guy did was he bought a long-term care policy. And this was the thing that was bothering him the most about retirement, was the fact that that could possibly happen to him and he wouldn't be covered by it. I just had a meeting. Many of you have heard the story of my mom, and she had dementia, and she passed away back in October. And so now we're dealing with her insurance company, right? So, of course, you're going to get a little insurance money, and what do? They try to sell you. They try to, let's manage your money, or all this money that your mom gave you, let's manage it, right? Mm-hmm. And then the topic came up of the long-term care because, here she had 5 years of dementia. It's in my family. Her mother had it. Her brothers got it, and I'm worried, okay? It's really got me bugged. And my wife looked at her and she goes, "I've made the decision. We're doing this. And so we're going to cover me for long-term care." But it took that.
Yeah.
For my wife to sit there and look, you are really sweating this out. Let's get this off the table. This guy said it was $30,000 for a hybrid long-term care policy, but it was the best thing that he did. It got that worry off the table. Sharice, you talked earlier in the show about guys, sometimes people, they sit back in their chair and go, "That's it. That's what I was looking for." And they sit back and relax. Have you found that once you get this worry off the table?
Oh my gosh. This is one of the biggest worries besides running out of money. Mm-hmm. Yes, because when we build our written plans and our income plans, Randy, that's where we find out, can you self-fund your long-term care, or do we need to figure out where to park some money to protect the asset if somebody goes in a nursing home, if for the surviving spouse that's still going to be alive, probably for years later. And then we also start to figure out, let's start talking to our elder attorney, especially depending on the age that you might be embarking in a season with us. Really, there's so many outliers there. Do we need to bring the attorneys in and start building in very specific trusts to help protect assets? And so there's a lot that goes into it. And we really do lean on our elder attorneys and our regular estate attorneys because they're the pros. They just taught us a lot. And so I have to be careful what I can say. But yes, people are like, "Oh, you work with elder attorneys?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll sit in the appointment with you." "Oh, you have estate attorneys?" "Yeah, we'll sit in the appointments with you. They come to our office." "Oh, wow, we don't have to buy long-term care insurance?" "No, you don't, because here in this written plan, you can see the math. It says you're still going to have $3 million by the time you're 80 and you could self-pay. And if they want to self-pay, because if you really look at it, if you're trying to cover $300,000 or $400,000 in nursing home coverage, you're looking at, $4,000 a year for 20 years. And you look at those costs, and the costs can keep going up. We've seen premiums double over the last 10 years. It's really disheartening, to the point where people are like, well, we paid $4,000 for our John Hancock policy, Charisse, or my Genworth policy. And now what's happening is the premium's going to double, or I can keep the premium the same, but I got to take my $400,000 benefit and drop it down to $200,000. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. And I'm so upset about how the insurance world has treated our retirees, because we're on a fixed budget. Why are we raising these premiums? Right. After all these years, we've not seen premiums raised in the last 40 years. And now they're raising because the cost and the burden to these insurance companies, they don't want it in. They actually want you to get out. And so a lot of things have changed. So you have to adapt to the changes. And so there are other ways to protect as well. So we're here to show that to you.
To sit down and talk about this. And I mean, when I talk about you sitting down with someone like Charisse, a financial advisor, there's got to be a reason. And sometimes these are the reasons. You see this happen in your family and you go, I got to get myself protected against this, because if it happens to me, I see how much it costs. Or it might be a tax situation that you're into. You got all of your monies in a 401k, and you realize that once you start taking it out, in order to get a $30,000 car, you got to take $52,000 out, and you're going, I don't want to do that. Well, that's another reason to come in. You might be worried about, am I going to run out of money? Do I have enough? Have I saved? Okay, there's another reason to come in. Give Charisse a call. Let's get these worries off the table for you. Here's the number and here's the website, 833-368-3680, 833-368-3680, or use the website, zinniawealth.com, ZINNIA wealth.com. And there's a gold box there. It says complimentary retirement consultation. That's a meeting. And let's do the math on your retirement. All right, so there's about 4 million people a year that are retiring right now. We are in the home stretch, and all the baby boomers are moving their way into retirement. And many of them are looking for a replacement for their paycheck. And how do you go about that? One of the ways to look at that is an annuity. And you say the word and people's eyebrows go up and they look like they just saw Freddy Krueger, and it's just an awful thing. Well, this is Andy Reid, and he's at Morningstar, and he says the same thing. It's not what the tool's called, it's what the tool does.
Everybody loves the concept of annuities, but they don't love annuities themselves, right? The annuity is like a 4-letter word. So when you ask people, do you want guaranteed income that will never run out? Yeah, sure. Do you want regular paychecks to sustain your spending in retirement? Yeah, sure. Sounds great. Do you like Social Security? Yeah, sure. Do you want to buy an annuity? Oh, no, I don't want to buy an annuity. No, 0 interest.
We've talked about this. It's so funny, the stigma that's there. And if it was called something else and you said, here's something that's going to, perhaps replace all of your paycheck or some of your paycheck, you're protected against market volatility and all these things, you go, sign me up. Well, it's an annuity. Get me out.
So
it's
true.
Pretty funny. All right. So we talk about this in many different ways. And Charisse, there are annuity salesmen out there that this is their only answer to retirement difficulties. That is not the case at Zinnia Wealth. Tell me how you use annuities.
So annuities are for different people, different times, different needs. I really like the fixed annuity because it offers somewhere between 5 and 5.5%. It's been a great bond replacement. They're usually 5 years long, so it's nice to sprinkle a little bit of that in. But today's day and age, they do have the index annuities. They're the ones that cannot take losses when the market crashes. They will not lose. They're the ones that allow you to invest in the S&P 500. So when the S&P 500 goes up 30% or 15%, you get to participate in the gain. And when the S&P goes down 30% or 15%, you just don't participate in the losses. It's kind of a nice little piece to add to a portfolio. Those don't have fees. So that's a little bit more of a growth annuity if you want protection. Now, there's also the income annuities. So income annuities, you're buying yourself more income than the dollar amount you put in there would normally allow you to withdraw. So you're betting on these income annuities that you're going to live a long life, right? Because these income annuities are very generous. And for example, you put $100,000 in over 10 years, it's going to more than double. So right now, one of the companies, I think it gives like a 30% bonus on the income plus a guarantee of 8% every year. And it keeps stacking and compounding every year. And you can start the income anytime you want. But if you waited 10 years, that is a big check. Right. So let's say your 100,000, I'll go 500,000. Say your 500,000 goes over $1 million. It's going to give you, I don't know, 50 grand a year to $60,000 a year, just depending on the time you get into it. And if you take that $50,000 or $60,000 a year from $1 million, you can watch your account go down. You can watch fluctuation. Some of those annuities even pay more than $60,000 a year. So you have to do the math. Not too many people I sit with, Randy, do we offer income annuities. A lot of them have a big chunk of money they've saved, and we can just put it into the stock market and some dividend funds and some notes and sprinkle in a little annuity with the S&P 500 index for those who want it. It doesn't mean they have to get it. And so we really spread out that portfolio depending on the risk. Some people walk in, Randy, and they're like, Sharice, I don't want to lose a dime. I got $1 million here. I don't really want to pay you a fee, and I want to make sure it's always here. So what do you have that doesn't take losses? And when I'm only looking to make 4 to maybe 6% over the next 10 years. So that's when we sprinkle in more annuities, some notes, some CDs. That's an ultra conservative person. And then we get these people who are moderate risk. And they know deep down inside they have to have some safety. They know bonds aren't necessarily the answer, but having some is good. They also know that having things that do not go backwards, but they still want the growth, right? We're so used to growth. We still want our money to grow, right? But we want to be able to live on our income without market volatility. So where the annuity comes into a really good place for a retiree is when, let's say you have $1 million and 500,000 in the stock market. Now the stock market has crashed and you've lost 30, maybe 40%. Well, earlier we talked about you cannot take money out of the stock market when the market goes down. That's a good way to run out of money. So if you have another 500,000 set in fixed, safe instruments, CDs, annuities, money markets, a combination of things. We're not trying to get rich on that money. We're just trying not to get poor. And we're trying to make sure your income is still showing up. Then we would pull income from those accounts and let the stock market money grow back to where it's supposed to be, which could take 5 years. So it's a strategy. It's using leverage, but you have to get the right annuity. I'm going to be honest with you. There's so many I'm telling you, Randy, awful annuities out there. There's only 4 we offer. 4 out of thousands. Why is that? Because I feel like the rest are awful. And so we've really learned a lot, and we really do deep dives, and we search out some of the best products known to man when it comes to the insurance world, because it's our name on the line, and we want to make sure we're doing what's right as a fiduciary for our clients.
Well, when it comes to building your paycheck, what the money that you're going to get in retirement, there's really only about 4 places that you can look. It's the stock market, the banks, the insurance companies, and real estate. Yep. So choose, you can use all of them. You can use some of them. It's all up to you. And that's one of the things that I want to leave you with today is whatever it is, and you decide how you're going to plan your retirement. It's all up to you. You get to choose. Nobody's going to put you in an arm bar and say you got to go into the stock market. That's not what happens at Zinnia Wealth.
Yeah, no.
Give Sharice a call. Give the team a call. Here it's 833-368-3680. 833-368-3680. It's a complimentary meeting, no cost, no obligation. Let's talk about your retirement, see if we can help. Again, ZinniaWealth.com is the website, ZINNIA Wealth.com. Sharice, that is all the time we have on this one. I'll give you the last word.
As usual, live by design and not by default, and we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at ZinniaWealth.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Insurance products are offered through Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC, Florida license L078655, and Sharice Rivers, Florida license P037744. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, and Zinnia Wealth Management, LLC are affiliated entities. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the podcast and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this podcast is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Any client experience discussed on this show are unique to that client. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities or other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. References to specific investments should not be construed as being past specific recommendations. The returns for various indices discussed in this podcast do not represent the performance of the firm or any of its advisory clients. Returns do not reflect the impact that advisory fees will have on an investment. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. All investment strategies have potential for profit or loss. Different types of investments involve higher and lower levels of risk. There is no guarantee that a specific investment strategy will be suitable or profitable for an investor's portfolio. Historical performance returns for investment indexes and/or categories usually do not deduct transaction and/or custodial charges or advisory fees, which would decrease historical performance results. There are no guarantees that a portfolio will match or outperform a specific benchmark. Investments in fixed income products are subject to liquidity risk, market risk, index rate risk, credit risk, inflation risk, purchasing power risk, and taxation risk. Because bond prices fluctuate continually, their yields change constantly.